So joining us now, former Pennsylvania and senior political analyst of Newsmax, Rick Santorum. Great to see you, Senator. So last night's celebrations were completely without drama. We were just talking about it with Logan Raddick, but there was a little bit of drama in terms of the weather, serious storms causing a delay and a temporary evacuation of the mall ground. But President Trump certainly was not going to let a little rain stop the celebration or his highly publicized speech. Let's watch.
One of my very brilliant people backstage said, "Don't worry about it, sir. We can do it maybe next week." I said, "It doesn't work next week. This is the big day. We want July 4th. We're not looking for July something else. Because this is the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. Nothing like it."
So President Trump said he was willing to speak until 4 in the morning with one person there. But of course, there were so many. And this was my favorite part, Senator. There were 100-year-old veterans that stayed through the rain for this, saluting the flag. So what does this say about our country's resolve?
Well, yeah, the president is an amazing man with stamina, first and foremost. I mean, he's 80 years old and he's out there late at night. He stayed for the fireworks. They kept flashing to him. I think, gosh, I hope he's not falling asleep. Maybe I might be at that age, but he was all over it and obviously energized by it. He gets energized by people in the crowd and the celebration and to see that veteran, that 100-year-old veteran come out and salute the flag from the there was a whole bunch of different flags there and different people came out and talked about the history of our country. So it was great for the president to go through and talk about the sacrifice and the service that was necessary to have this 250 years. And, it wasn't a political speech, which was great to see, although he did get a shot in about communism. We'll never be a communist country. And so there was that. But to me, that's very appropriate that, our values are inconsistent. The American values are inconsistent with the values of communism. So I thought he did a great job.
Yeah, I agree. It was a great speech. Now, Senator, there was also another large gathering recently, this one in Iran, and far from a celebration of American independence. This mass gathering took place at the funeral for the former supreme leader of the Iranian regime, Ayatollah Khomeini, who was killed after the war started by an American airstrike. Now, listen to what the mourners were chanting. I mean, the chants, you saw a sign during the chants that said "Kill Trump." There were the "Death to America" chants at the funeral. And of course, this is not the first time we've seen radicals in the Middle East calling for death to America. But this is in the middle of negotiations to end the war. So the question is, Senator, what do you think and what would you advise President Trump on how to respond to this?
Well, this is nothing new for Iran. They've been chanting death to America since 1979, and they've been very clear that America is the great Satan. Israel, everybody points to Israel. Israel's the little Satan. They're concerned about Israel, but the big focus of the Iranian regime is to destroy the United States of America. And obviously, that's not changed. I mean, these people out there are being orchestrated by the regime. They were being required to be out there by the regime. And it shows that there still is support. I mean, the regime is a very wealthy regime. I mean, I've seen reports that the Ayatollah is one of the top 5 wealthiest men in the world. Why? Because they have huge amounts of energy resources. They use it for their own wealth, for their own power, for their own security, and to project power through terrorism and eventually nuclear weapons. And that's why the president had to do what he did. They haven't changed. And, with all due respect to the president, negotiating with these people, you can get a deal with them. They'll never live up to it. So at some point, the president has to recognize that that taking this regime on and that you see is still committed to the destruction of our country and is doing everything they can to make that happen, that has to be confronted.
Yeah, and also just finally, I want to get your reaction real quick in terms of the president's comments with respect to communism, because there is also a threat from within. Senator, let's take a quick listen to the president.
Our warriors did not fight communism on battlefields across the world, only to have that menace rear its ugly head right back here in America. We're not going to let it happen.
So how big of a threat is socialism, or really communism, because that's what it is. That's what President Trump is calling it. How big of it is it a threat in America right now?
Well, Abraham Lincoln said that, that this country will never succumb to an attack from outside of our shores, but come from suicide, death from within. And you're seeing it. One of the things I gave a speech at the Museum of the Bible over the weekend, and talked about how our country's based on the idea of God-given rights. Well, communism is godless. Communism is its own religion, and it has nothing to do with the God of the Bible. And our system, the Declaration, which we celebrated yesterday, is based on the idea of God-given rights. If you don't believe in God, well, you don't believe in God-given rights. You don't believe in the basic value structure of our country. You believe in government-given right. The government controls, and government is the power. And so the president is right. It's completely inconsistent with the American form of government, and it has to be confronted. And you have a party that is now not confronting it, but embracing it. You have some of the party, and I give them credit, including John Fetterman from Pennsylvania, who's standing up to that. But it's a very, very small group of Democrats who are willing to confront this, I argue, existential threat to the United States, and that is, replacing our Declaration of Independence and, frankly, our Constitution with the Communist Manifesto.
Yeah, exactly. And it's maybe 12 people who in the Democrat Party who are in leadership are coming out saying something, but the rest are silent. So if you don't condemn...
Well, none of them are in leadership. Let's just be clear.
No, none of them.
It's not Chuck Schumer. It's not Hakeem Jeffries.
Yeah.
It's backbenchers who are from swing states or from swing districts.
Right.
The bottom line is the core of the Democratic Party.
They're not.
We now have a country that less than 50%, the recent Pew poll, less than 50% of Americans believe in the God of the Bible. That is not a good portent for the future of America,
Bad trend.
of a country of God-given rights.
Right. If you don't condemn, you condone. Senator Rick Santorum, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.